especially now with fentanyl, and however they're getting that into the country and whatever they're doing with it it just seems like every other day it's like you know, get on social media or I'll hear from somebody and so and so has passed away. So during that time, it was in 2013, I got arrested for the charges that got me locked up. And back then I was 19 or 20. It was something around that age frame, but I was really addicted to heroin at the time. It was right when the opiate epidemic was kind of kicking off, and I was young and didn't care about anybody other than myself. And what got me arrested was I had stolen a gun from someone and pawned it to try to, you know, feed that addiction, and not knowing that the state police would go to those shops and run the serial numbers and see if they were stolen, and that they ended up coming in and arresting me for that. That happened, and I was originally put on probation, but being in addiction and not having gone through the things I have today to get me to this point now, I wasn't ready to give it up. And eventually, through so many chances through the legal system, they finally, you know, had enough of me and sent me to do my time, my backup time for that charge.
Where did the opioid experiment in addiction come from, if you don't mind me asking? Like, when did you run into doing that? Was it a buddy who had it, or what happened?
Yeah, sure. The first time I got high on opiates was in 2009, I think, and that was when you could still do doctor shopping. It's a little bit different today, but you used to be able to go to Texas and Florida and get prescriptions from paying doctors. They would give you all kinds of Oxycontin and Xanax and Somas, and the first time I experienced that was with Oxycontin. And I remember it was we were here in Baton Rouge, and I had a buddy that went to LSU. I was still in high school at the time, and we were coming from Mandeville, is where I grew up. That's where I got arrested at. And we were driving from Mandeville to my friend's apartment here in Baton Rouge by LSU, and we were just buying weed, but he had, I guess, the old Oxycontin 80s, which you can't, I think they've outlawed those by now. And that was the first time that I experienced that, and I just remember, like, the first time I did it, it was like I had no more problems in the world. It was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I don't know, I just felt like I had found everything that I'd been looking for, and for, you know, as long as I had lived. But I didn't know at the time that was going to be like, it was going to cause so much problems, and, you know, loss of freedom, loss of relationships. So many friends have passed away because of it. But yeah, that's how that started there.
You say you lost friends to it?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, how many?
So close friends, I would say I would say three real close friends, but countless people that I know or have come into contact with, or I couldn't even tell you a number. It's so many, because it's, especially now with fentanyl and however they're getting that in to the country and whatever they're doing with it is, it just seems like every other day it's like, you know, get on social media or I'll hear from somebody and so and so has passed away, and it's really killing a lot of people. And it's really, what's really sad is there's going to be a whole generation of kids that you know, their parents, they no longer have their parents in the world, and it's hard. So really, what sent me to prison was, it was my first offense. It was non-violent. It was non-sexual, but because of the chances that I was given, you know, they didn't just immediately send me to do my backup time. It was probation, and then I was given drug court, and through drug court, just full disclosure to anybody watching this, you have to be really ready to quit, you know, quit that lifestyle for that to work. But
drug court, that's where they sent you. They're like, okay, this person has a drug addiction, so they sent you through a process of trying to get clean.
Yeah, so it's like a legal accountability system, really. It's you would go to stand in front of a judge every week, you know, depending on what stage that you're in, and sometimes it's 2 weeks, I think, and I think towards the end it's once a month. But and the judge pretty much, this is what's going on in your life, and he looks it over and says, okay, you're doing good, or not, you know, you got to go sit in jail for a week or two or whatever. But and the weekly drug tests, stuff like that. So yeah, that was that was kind of my last option. And I think with addiction, really, until someone's really ready to give it up, or it will never work. And I wasn't back then, you know. It was still such a part of my life that I wasn't ready to give it up. So
but you did kind of you went through the process of the drug court, and then you were back out with your freedom, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you got back out with your freedom, tell us about your next. You got locked up again at that point.
Yeah. So after so many, they call them drug court sanctions, is where, like, if you fail a drug test or miss a drug test or don't go to however many meetings they have you do, they'll give you like a sanction, which would be like 24 hours in jail, 72 hours in jail, 1 week in jail, 2 weeks in jail. You know, it's kind of like on a tiered system like that. I don't know, everyone is different too. My St. Tammany Parish is the one I did it in, and it was a long time ago, 10 years ago. So it might have changed since I was in it, but after like that last 2 week one, the next time I had screwed up was they revoked that. So I ended up sitting in jail for about 10 months, and then I went to hunt here in not here in Baton Rouge, but in the area. It's in St. Gabriel, and then I did processing there. Spent about another month in there, and then the remainder of my time, I did a little over 18 months. I spent that at Rayburn Correctional Center in Angie.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first 10 months, and where was that at?
St. Tammany.
St. Tammany, and then you went to Hunts for about a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one was?
Rayburn.
Rayburn, okay.
Yep.
10 months first?
Yeah, I was given a 4-year sentence, and I did 18 and a little over 18.
Because of the gun, right?
Yeah, that was the charge that sent me there. I ended up pleading out to theft over 1,500, but it was the original arrest was for a firearm, possession of stolen.
Man, tell us about that. When they told you you had like this 4-year sentence.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? How was that like?
It's scary at first, you know, and the only person I had there with me was my mom in the courtroom, and I think that made it a little harder at the same time because she had to sit there and listen to, you know, someone say what they're gonna do with her son, you know, and she had no power over it. But it was still nice for me to have that support there, someone there for me. But yeah, not knowing what all would happen, and you know the experiences I've had, you know, incarcerated, you know, being that young and yeah, kind of naive to everything. It was scary, you know. Never really had spent too much time in jail other than those little bitty overnights, and I think the longest I did was like a week before that. Like I said, it was a drug court sanction, but I knew I was gonna go home in 7 days, you know. But now, when he said that, you know, it was stressful, but at the same time, it almost gave me a sense of relief because I knew that the process had started a little bit. Like I knew that, okay, I'm at the very beginning of it, but there is an end to it. So that was tough. And another thing that probably doesn't make sense, but until I had actually gotten my rap sheet from DOC that had like a specific date on it, like a release date, that made it a lot easier too, when I could actually see it on paper. That, you know, this is when it's going to be eligible for parole on this date. You know, worst case scenario, if they flatten me out, this is what I'm going to get. You know, so stuff like that. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because the St. Tammany jail, I don't know if it still ran the way that it was when I was locked up, but that was when Walter Reed was the DA and Jack Strain was the sheriff, and both of them are in prison right now. And they were very, at least the sheriff, how he ran that jail was very inhumane. They have holding tanks about the size of this room, and there's 4 of them right when you get inside, you know, booking, and it's just concrete slab bench on each side, a toilet, and 4 cell phone, or not cell phones, 4 pay phones on the wall, and you don't get a blanket, you don't get a mat, you don't get anything. You're still wearing your street clothes, and I spent 23 days in that holding tank before I was taken back to general population with like the same group of people like that couldn't leave. You know, obviously they'd have people come in that would bond out or something similar like that, but in order to go back into the back, I had to spend 23 days, and it was really, the really screwed up thing about it was I was praying to God to go deeper into jail, you know, because it was so terrible in this little holding tank with that many people for, you know, almost a month. Yeah. Yeah, so my experience getting into the back was, I was relieved, I was happy because, you know, they give you like a little green mattress about this thick with, you know, cotton. But that was like I was sleeping on like the fanciest mattress in the world because I had been on concrete for, you know, over 20 days. But it was, you know, going back there, it's chaotic. it's a different way of living. You know, everybody's every man for himself kind of thing. And the one thing that, well, there's a few good things that being locked up did for me, but one of the things was you have to treat everybody with respect when you're inside, and that's something that still kind of stayed with me. I think it was, you know, having to learn how to, you know, talk to another person and you know, be accountable for the things that I say and things like that. It's a very respect-driven world that's on the inside, and your word is really all you got. Credibility, yeah. But yeah, it's a chaotic environment and cold. It's really cold in jail. Prison, not so much because they don't have AC or heat. But yeah, chaos is the best word that I can describe it as. People are up at all hours of the night. It's loud. Yeah, you see a lot of different things, strange things.
I would think that they would want to get sleep, seeing as how you have to be controlled. You can't just always sleep when you're on necessarily, right?
In jail you can. Yeah, in jail you can sleep however long you want. If you want to lay in your rack for 24 hours, you can do that. In prison you can't. They got us up, I want to say it was, I want to say we ate at 6:30. I don't remember exactly though, but until like 3 or 4, you couldn't be in your bed in prison. The ones when I was in jail in St. Tammany, they were all really kind of the same. It just kind of seemed like they were just there to get a check and do their job. Most of them, I mean, you had every place has got their assholes that they get some sort of power trip, I'd imagine. I don't know, but yeah, there's a few that, you know, you knew that if they were working your dorm, or if they were working that day, really, that it was going to be a little tougher. But it was when I was in prison that I started to see that I don't know, there really wasn't too much difference, honestly. It was more like, so Angie is in a part of Louisiana that's like real rural, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess that reflected a little bit on how the guards were to certain inmates. And you know, you could see that, and it was a little bit different. But most of them were the same. You know, a lot of them were just there to get a paycheck, but some of them made your life a little more difficult than others.
Maybe run into somebody you actually knew, or family, or anything like that.
Yeah, there was a few at Rayburn that I knew of at least from back home. But one of the guys that really stood out to me, his name was Chris Pendleton, and he slept on the bed next to mine. It was like we had metal racks, and then right next, like 1 and 2, and he slept on the top bunk on the one to the right of me. And he was doing life in prison for second-degree murder, and he was arrested, or he got arrested and charged and locked up when he was 17, and he was in his late 30s the time that I met him, but I've never came in contact with somebody that had such a good outlook on life. And he was spending the rest of his life in prison. Like, he was so completely content and happy with like himself. And I mean, maybe internally it wasn't that way, but like just on the outside, he was just always had something good to say. And what his faith in God is what, you know, he told me had changed him. I guess that's really all you have when you know you're never, you know, gonna get out of prison. But he really made a big impact on my time there, and helped kind of, you know, talk to me and get me through the little bit that I had to do. I didn't have to do that much, thankfully. But yeah, he was a big part of my time there. There were a lot of people that were not receiving the type of care that they needed in the prison system. A lot of it, I don't know this for sure, but this is just my opinion on it. I think that the state didn't know what else to do with them, so they just sent them to prison. You know, like there were quite a number of them that they needed mental health care and weren't receiving it. And
what made you think they needed medical health care? They were like
schizophrenic, you know, hearing voices, seeing things that weren't there. Yeah, I don't. I'm sure the state has a hospital that they send people to, but I don't think a lot of them made it there. They just put them in the prison system. And, one of them, when I was in Hunt and processing in the Beavers, one of them had implants. One of the inmates had implants, and identified as female. I don't know how they would manage that, the system, because, you know, that's now a part of their body. But, you know, you put someone that looks sort of like a woman in an environment of men that are never going to be with a woman, it can cause some problems, you know, fights between people because they want to be with this person, or that's theirs, you know, kind of. Yeah, that caused a lot of problems. And even with people that didn't identify as female, that, you know, just had a different sexuality, you know, that caused problems too between people. You know, just like kind of the relationship problems that go on, you know, out here between men and women. You know, arousing jealousy and being overprotective, you know, that went on in there too. And so yeah, I don't know how they should go about dealing with people that have gender identity struggles. I don't know, that's the politically correct term to say, but because I think today it's talked about more than it was back then, even 10 years ago. But yeah, that went on in there, and I'm sure now it's even more prevalent than it was then. And it's like I said, it's only been 10 years, so.
So you're in there. What did you normally do? I mean, I know you're limited, but what do you normally do to pass the time? You read anything?
Yeah, reading was kind of my go-to thing to pass the time. When I was in jail, I read so many books because you had nothing else to do. But when I went to prison, the one good thing about the place they sent me to was there was a lot of opportunity to educate yourself, I guess. They had vocational training there, and I went through their welding program to get those credentials, and I did that. So that was one of the main ways that I passed time. So I would wake up in the morning and go to school for the whole day, and that helped pass a lot of time because it gave me something to do and something to like kind of study and that stuff. But reading was a big one when I wasn't in school. They have good time classes in prison that you take, and if you don't have violent charges or sexual charges, they help reduce your sentence a little bit. And I did some of those. That's really it. Played cards a lot. Spades is something that everybody does. Yeah, people, if put in a situation where they have no other resources, they have seen all kinds of different creations. Tattoo guns made out of little motors, or we used to make string with garbage bags, where you stretch it, spin it, stretch it, spin it, stretch it. They had a guy when I was at Rayburn. He did all the like sewing, and you can get whatever you wanted made. Sweatshirt. He'd embroider it with your name. It was all kind of stuff. Yeah, make hats. And with all that time, you get pretty good at that. So it was pretty neat. Making they really made anything. Little like heaters to boil water and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah, so you know when you're going to get released on that rap sheet, unless you take classes that take your time off, and that's kind of what happened to me. It was as soon as DOC calculated my time, I was released through the classes that I took, and yeah, I remember the first time that I saw my mom was a pretty good feeling. But there's the feeling of walking out of a place that you've been for so long, and I had no choice in it. Like, I had no choice but to be there, and finally being able to like make a choice of like where I could go, or what I could do, or where, or eat, or anything like that it was a really good, like, freeing feeling. Freeing, obviously, but it's really what it felt like. I felt like I was being freed. So yeah, before I got locked up, I say I had a lot of friends, but when I was locked up, I had one person actually take the time to write me the whole time I was there. And I think that goes to show that there's a lot of people in the world that say they care about me, care about you, but when it really matters, like, how many people really are there? And for me, it was just one. My sister, and then one friend outside of family that came to visit me or wrote me. One friend out of my family that took the time to write me a letter to see how I was doing. And I don't think that when I was locked up, I don't think that anybody had passed away. But that happened more so recently with the fentanyl that's been going on. But yeah, that kind of was like an eye-opener for me, was, all these people that claimed that they cared about me, or as soon as I didn't as soon as I wasn't around to do something for them, they were nowhere to be found, you know. And that was a pretty important life lesson, I think, was to, I don't know if that made me colder a little bit, a little more callous towards relationships now.
But it certainly made you more conscious of.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think so. I think that, you know, doing stuff like we're doing today, and like talking to different people, because, you know, especially in my case, when it comes from addiction, you know, addiction doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't care who you are, where you come from, what color your skin is, or anything like that. And I think that, you know, by, you know, talking to people that have experienced these things and seeing what they look like, you know, it might kind of help, you know, it might help someone else that, you know, is kind of like me back then now. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but you know, hopefully, you know, by doing these things and seeing that how it affects different people, but the outcome is the same, maybe, you know, maybe it'll help somebody. You know, I think that's important. You know, the bad things that I went through, and it could have been a lot worse. If I could go through them and it helped a person avoid it, it'd all be worth it. You know, I don't regret anything really. There's some things that I would change, but I really don't regret it. I think at the time in my life that I did have to go to prison, I think that if I'd have stayed doing what I was doing, there's a good chance that I wouldn't be here today. So I think that you know, God really had a reason for it, you know, and there was some good that came out of it too, you know, the welding and stuff. I've never used it. I've never used it for work since I've been released, but it's good to have. And yeah, it took me out of the streets for, you know, 2 years of my life when I was in early addiction. So yeah, that's really it.